Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at the minimum and maximum commands. Today we're going to be looking at the min and max functions within PowerBasic. These are very useful functions and are probably underutilized. So let's have a look at the code. If we create a local variable, and we're going to populate this local variable with the maximum of a series of numbers. Now, obviously, looking at the 4 numbers I've put in here, the largest number is actually 20. So it'll be no surprise when we run this that the output from this function will be calculated as 20. As it is. Now, you're unlikely in your code to actually put a function in just like this, hard-coding each of the values. These are more likely to be held in variables that are populated by a user or taken from somewhere else in the system. However, for the purposes of demonstration, we can calculate what the minimum number is, which should in this case be 4, which it is correctly doing. So you can easily see how these two functions actually work. Max will give you the maximum number, and min will give you the minimum number. Now in actuality there's no reason why you can't add additional values on. There is in theory no limit to the number of parameters this particular function will accept. Max is still 20, and the minimum now should be 1. Which it is. So if we change this around slightly and put the values into variables, here we have prepared 3 local variables, long A, B and C, each of them being a long. We've populated the values with 45, 3 and 12, and if we perform the same logic to work out which of them is a maximum, we will quite happily see, in this case it should pick 45. Which it does. We can use the exact same logic to get the minimum, which should be 3, which it is. So you might wonder, what's the point of using the minimum and maximum? If you encounter 2 values within your program, say for example one being 45 and one being 3, in the long A and long B variables, you can quite easily use an if command to work out which one is the larger and act accordingly. However, if you have more than 2 variables to compare to work out which one is larger, it's more complicated actually using if commands. The min command and the max command make it very easy to work out which is the minimum and which is the maximum of a series of variables. Say for example you wish to draw a chart, and the chart is calculating how many parcels are delivered to your depot each day of a 7-day week. Now you may have these 7 values, 1 value for each day, but you'll need to work out which is the maximum in order to set the scale of the chart. Some weeks you may have 50 parcels, some weeks you may have 500 parcels, so you want to set your scale based on the data that's coming in. Well, your min and max commands can quite happily be used to work out which day had you the greatest number of parcels and what that value actually was, and you can set the scale of your chart accordingly. So the max command would be very useful in that scenario. Now we're going to add on an extra variable here as a string. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use the min command on long A, long B, long C and a number. What we want to find out here is which is the smallest value, and we're giving it a hard-coded constant in our min command. Now if I exclude the @ sign at the end here and run this, obviously the smallest number between these sets of numbers should be 0.1. Now if we run that now, you'll see that it has given you 0.1, but there are a lot of decimal places after the 0.1. This is because it's treated the number as a floating point variable. Adding an @ sign after the number will force the compiler to actually treat it as a currency variable. Or you could have two @ signs for extended currency. Doing it this way, you will quite happily get the value you expect, which is 0.1. You could also use the hash sign or two hash signs to avoid the floating point problem. Now, it's all very well giving it a list of variables, but you could also use an array. If we set up an array with some values in it, for example, we're defining an array of long values, and the array goes from element 1 to element 4, and we're assigning values to each of those 30, 4, 3, 12 and 0. And we can use exactly the same logic as we did before to work out the minimum and maximum. Now, we've been using the max function on its own and the min function on its own. However, there is a special use of the max function, which is followed by the ampersand. Using the ampersand forces the max command to assume that all the values it's been given are going to be longs. Now, since it knows they're all going to be longs, it is slightly more efficient than the ordinary max command. Running this, it should find the largest value is 34, which it does. And again, we could do exactly the same for the min command, and the smallest value would be 0, as that's the last element in the array. These very two functions aren't just arithmetic. They're not just for numbers. We can take the same approach with strings. If we prepare an array of strings, apple, pear, cherry, banana and kiwi, we can use exactly the same functions on those to work out which is the smallest alphabetically and which is the largest alphabetically. Now, we use a special version of the min command, as in min $, to tell it we were dealing entirely with strings. And this should find the lowest alphabetical element. So if we run that now, it should quite happily output apple. If we go for the max, it should find pear, which it does. Now, if we change the apple to an uppercase A, just to see how it handles that, apple is still the minimum one. So in that case, it's case independent. So as you can see, there's quite a lot to the min and the max commands, which are all covered quite happily in the help file. As you will see, from the help file you can perform calculations within the function, as you can with many functions. So the min and max functions are very flexible, and I'm sure you will find them useful in your coding. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.